This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast for today's guest, Jeffrey Davidson.
Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I am coming to you from the desert sands of Palm Springs, and it is absolutely beautiful here. The weather has been amazing, and we have managed to see so many wonderful things. This week we went up in the Palm Springs aerial cable car. Oh my goodness, it was a lot scary. If you haven't seen it, go and Google it, because it is this cable car that goes up about 3,600 feet, I think it was, and it feels like it's straight up. I know it's obviously not, but it goes from the bottom of Palm Springs all the way up to the top of the mountains. And get this, not only does it go straight up, but it also spins at the same time. I was very proud of Lana. She managed to get all the way up. I honestly thought we were going to have tears because I was sweating. I wasn't scared out of my brain, but I was holding on for dear life, and I was very proud that she managed to get all the way up. Now, coming back down was a little bit of a different story. She refused to stand near the window, and so the two of us stood in the middle of the car with her looking straight down at the floor, holding onto me for dear life. But the fact is, she did it. She overcame the fear and just pushed ahead, and we had a fantastic time at the top of the mountain. So when you get to the top of this cable car, you end up in the forest. And we took a little bit of a walk all around the forest, and we saw a deer, and we saw squirrels and chipmunks. Lana was super excited to see the deer and the chipmunks, but it was just so serene when you got to the top. And I think the biggest sort of mind-blowing thing that I was trying to get my head around was it was so hot at the bottom in the desert, but at the top it was only about 5 degrees Celsius. So down in the bottom of Palm Springs that day, it was about 30 degrees. Up the top, it was 5 degrees. So such a huge difference. And it's really weird to think there are snow on these mountains in winter, but literally at the bottom of the mountain, it is desert. I still don't get it. It just feels really weird. I just don't understand. Obviously, the snow melts in a completely different direction because otherwise the desert wouldn't be a desert, right? Anyway, enough about the cable car. As I sit here and record it, we are just packing our bags to head back to LAX to fly back to Sydney. And during my couple of weeks off, I've had to rely on my team to continue to keep the business going. I've done a couple of coaching calls while I've been here and just done some check-ins with my team. But apart from that, I haven't actually done any work, which is a little bit weird because I often do work even though I'm on holidays. So apart from a couple of coaching calls, which I was happy to do, I have had to rely on my team to make sure that the business keeps going, we keep earning money, our customers are satisfied, and that any support tickets are answered. Now, of course, there are responsibilities that come with having a team. I know personally, I do stress about having to pay wages for everybody, and I do want to make sure that everybody really enjoys the time that they spend working on my projects. And of course, we have to make sure that everybody gets together. And because everybody is remote, that has added another challenge into the mix. So none of my team actually see each other, apart from once a year when I catch up with Monica over in America, or a couple of times a year that I catch up with Elizabeth in Australia. Everybody is in a completely different time zone. There is literally no two people in the same time zone. So all of this comes with its challenges. And as the leader of the business, it is my job to ensure that everybody gets along well and that everybody pulls their own weight. And of course, that everybody is happy. And that is not always the easiest thing in the world to do. But today, Jeffrey Davidson is going to come on and give you some tips on how you can foster a great team relationship and a great team culture. And before we jump in, this episode is sponsored by my brand new membership portal, the Retail Academy. Now, I don't know about you, but in my stores, if you're anything like I was, growing your retail business can take a back seat when you have to deal with ordering stock, packing orders, hiring and managing staff, which is what we're talking about today, and even marketing your e-commerce or retail store. You know that you need to get more customers, to streamline your systems, and basically, you've got to sell more products. But it's easy to wonder how the heck you're ever going to have time to work on your business when that to-do list seems to be never ending. Well, I know exactly what it feels like to be overwhelmed, stressed, and frustrated, wondering if there's really any point in continuing when you're working more hours than ever before. Does this sound familiar? But if you're anything else like me, you know that there has to be a better way. And I'm super happy to say that I've cracked the code. Imagine feeling more in control of your business, more confident in your marketing, and less figuring out how to do it yourself. Imagine if you had someone who would show you the one thing that you could focus on to make more sales, to increase your profits, and to streamline those systems of yours. Well, I've got your back. I want to help you build a profitable brand, to have a retail business that gives you back the personal and financial freedom that you started this journey for. And that's why I created the Retail Academy Inner Circle, a monthly membership community for retail and e-commerce store owners around the world. Each month, you'll get a step-by-step hard copy action plan that will walk you through implementing a proven business strategy into your store, whether it's online or offline, removing the overwhelm and frustration that we can so often fall victim to as independent retailers. No more shiny object syndrome. No more ping-ponging from one task to the next, never quite finishing anything. You'll also get case studies and done-for-you templates that you can tweak and go rather than having to reinvent the wheel. Plus, you'll be part of a community of retailers from all around the world who are serious about taking action to grow their retail stores. And don't worry, for you overachievers, I've got you covered also. Inside the Retail Academy is packed full of DIY trainings and retail-specific courses that you can implement in your own time to further help you grow and scale your retail business. Oh, and did I mention that you'll also receive monthly office hours where my team and I will be able to answer your personal questions live. Nothing else in the world comes close to the power of the Retail Academy Inner Circle. As a straight shooting, tell it like it is successful retail business owner who has helped transform hundreds of businesses around the world, I know exactly what you need to focus on in order to grow. And I want to show you exactly what that next step is. If this sounds like something that you need in your business, head on over to selenaknight.com/inner circle and you can jump into the Inner Circle community straight away. I hope to see you there. Now let's jump into today's episode with Jeffrey Davidson, all on creating a fantastic team culture and making sure you have the right people to help you grow your business. Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Now, I know that when you are growing your business, you need to have a team, but sometimes you can't afford a full-time team. So you might be working with a remote VA, or you might have part-time people picking and packing for you. Maybe you've got a part-time social media person, but sometimes it can feel like a luxury when you've got someone full-time. And keeping all of those balls juggling in the air and making sure everybody gets along can be really difficult. So I've brought Jeffrey Davidson onto the show to help you help your team. Welcome to the show, Jeffrey.
Hello, and thanks so much for having me come and be with you and your guest today.
Oh, I'm sure that they are really going to love this one. I woke up this morning to a Bonjoro. So a few months ago, we did an interview with Matt from Bonjoro, which is a video app, kind of BombBomb, I think is another one. And this lady had sent me one saying, oh my God, you're a genius. I just listened to this episode and it's fantastic. I'm going to use it for this, this, this. I just had to send you one because I want to know how to use it. And I'm sure that we're going to get a similar kind of reaction because I know what you're going to share is really going to help people in their business. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up here today talking to us about building teams and making sure that they can actually function well and you have a great culture.
Thank you for the setup. And a little bit about me is it comes with, I thought I was smart and then I failed big and then I was blessed. So that's the short version. But what I mean by that is, as a teenager, I was reading Prince by Machiavelli, about how to be a leader and how to manipulate the situation. And in college, I co-taught a class on student leadership with the dean of students. And I was in leadership positions in all these organizations in college. And then in my 20s and my 30s, I was a leader. I was a department head. I was the president of a small company. I was number 2 in a startup. And what I realized by my mid-30s was I am not a good leader. I had studied a lot of books, but the books and the real life were two different things. I didn't figure out how to connect them. So I chucked it all. I went into consulting, where I just go from one business to another telling them what to do.
I was going to say, you just tell people what to do in consulting,
yes,
don't you?
That's what I did. And that's what they wanted me to do that. They loved my advice. But I had a former colleague call me and say, Jeffrey, can you come build us a team of analysts? So I said yes. And eventually they hired me to lead this team. And over the course of a couple of years, as this team was truly life-changing in some ways, and I loved working with them, and they loved working with me and with each other, I came to realize that, 1, I did understand leadership, and 2, this team had taught me how to be a good leader. So I feel really blessed by that. I then went back into consulting and I tried working in different team environments. And I became this expert that helped teams work well together. I didn't realize I was bringing this with me, but they hired me for one reason, but as a side effect, their teams really work better. And I'm like, I've got to share this more. So I founded my own company, Leading Great Teams, LTD. And that's what I do now, is I try to help other people have a great team.
That is really interesting that you say that you weren't a good leader to begin with, because I've always wondered, I think I've always been a good leader. I was the bossy kid at school that was arranging the lines, and oh my gosh, my daughter is exactly the same. I see it now. She's 10 and we get the report cards home that says, sometimes we have to remind Lana that leadership skills are great, but it doesn't mean that she can be bossy. And I think yes. I can understand where you're coming from, because telling people what to do and fostering a team culture are two very, very different things. And I know that when I first went into my first job and I rose very quickly, we worked for a very autocratic leader. Mm-hmm. It was his saying was, it's my way or the highway. Don't come to me with problems, just come to me with solutions. It was like he went to, business management school 101. And everybody was afraid of actually talking to him. You would see a problem and you'd think, well, if I can't work this out myself, I can't talk to anybody about it. But that's not what a leader does.
No, you probably saw it on my face. That just makes me sigh. It really does. The reason we need teams today in this environment is between regulation, between competition, between the opportunities out there with reaching new people, with the pace of technology. You can't do things alone. What you used to be able to survive with just a single skill and get along, but the world is too interdependent. Yes, that's very rare today. And you need a team of people to accomplish great work. And I believe people really want to accomplish great work. They want to make a difference. And you can't do that as much by yourself as you can with a team of people. So you're going to end up needing a team of people. And then a good team of people is amazing with what they can do. And a bad group of people, I won't even call them a team,
no.
How little they accomplish can be astounding, because there's so very little that they actually get done.
Yeah. And even just one person, isn't it? One bad apple in the bunch can make a huge difference.
Oh, yes. Yes. and leaders, that's your responsibility. I mean, I'm pointing my fingers at you. If you allow people to exhibit bad behaviors and you don't call them on it, then you're in essence saying it's okay to be a bad apple in my bunch.
Yeah.
And there's no cost for you. And that's fine. We're just going to keep you and pay you like you were before, even though you're spoiling the other apples. Oh, please don't do that, leaders.
No. And don't just move them to a different section either if you're a bigger company.
No. Solve problems before you move them on.
Yes. All right. So let's get a little bit more specific here. If you have a retail business and you're doing okay, and you have maybe you just have one. Let's start with one. You hire your first person, and is it any different if you hire a remote person, like a remote VA, versus someone who works with you day in, day out, do you think?
If anything, you want to make sure you have a good connection with someone who's remote, because you're not going to be able to connect with them face to face. You're not going to have that ability. So you do want to make sure that you have a good connection with them, and that you have similar values. But largely it's the same thing, is that you want people who agree with you on some key issues and have exhibited a pattern that shows that they're going to succeed in what you need to have done.
Yeah. I always have said, we've done quite a few episodes on hiring, and I even have my ultimate hiring guide for retailers, and it is all based on hiring behaviorally. So hiring for specific behavioral traits, because unless you're doing something like my father-in-law who breaks down nuclear power stations, you can kind of teach anybody to do anything in retail. You can teach someone to use a point of sale. You can teach them to do social media. Maybe they're not an expert at the beginning, but if their heart and their mind are in the right place, I believe they will try their hardest to make that work, to learn the thing that you need them to learn.
Oh, in general. And I know we're not going to talk about hiring specifically, but of course I have a lot of thoughts on, because good hires make a great team easier.
Yes.
And what I realized when I was hiring my analysts is I finally realized that they didn't have to have a ton of experience in the technical aspects of the job. If they showed similar aptitudes, I could teach them my tools, and I could teach them my process and my expectations. But it's hard to teach someone how to be hungry and want to work and do a good job. It's hard to teach someone how to have good social relations with another person when they have to go interview someone. It's hard to teach someone a lot of skills. So I had to figure out which were the trainable skills, which were the hard to train skills, and I hire for this list. Yes. This was easy to write a job description about. I needed to hire for this. And
do you think we get a little bit hung up on that? Do you think we get hung up on, I need somebody who has to know this point of sale system inside out?
Because, definitely.
Because I don't have time to train them.
Oh, and if you don't have time to train them, then don't hire them. And, you're laughing, but I want to say, so often, let's say we've got 6 employees. So we give a little bit of training to the first employee. We hire the second employee. Well, any free time they get training from the first employee. The third employee goes to whoever's available when they first start for training. Yes. The fourth employee is going to whoever's available now. Now, whoever is available is probably the person that does the least amount of work that day, either because they're super efficient or because they don't know how to organize their work, so therefore they have extra time.
I was going to say, it's the person who's the least efficient because they've actually got the time.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is, by the time you get to person 5, they've got a hodgepodge of training from 4 other people whenever they had a free moment. And all they know is that everyone is doing something different. And because everyone's doing something different, they think, I can make up my own process.
Yes.
And then you wonder, why don't my customers get consistent service? Why doesn't everyone smile at every customer? It's because we don't have a common way to train everyone. And by not giving this common background, we don't have common expectations. And therefore, we don't deliver great expectations.
And I was just thinking, that can be really hard when you first start out. And do you know where I see this all the time? When people hire a VA and they want their VA to be a graphic designer, to answer my emails, to know how to use my marketing, CRM, to know how to use my MailChimp or my Active Campaign, whatever it is you're using, and also be able to upload things into my point of sale. Like, they want them to do everything. Do you find that? You're
I find
sighing.
that.
If
I
you guys, if
find
you're watching video, poor Jeffrey's
I
face.
just rolled my eyes so far back in my head you couldn't see them. Here's the thing is, and we want that VA to do that without any training.
Yes.
Come to grips. If you could find that person, they would cost too much money. And if it was as easy as you think you could have hired a sophomore in high school, to do it in their spare time. You're asking for a bunch of different train skills, and it doesn't work that way. So much of this, we've already talked about the word expectations. Expectations are key. We need to have clear expectations of what we want from people. And back to where you first started this conversation. And then we need to reward people when they do that expectation. That's how we build up a good culture, by saying, oh, you did this, you did it really timely. That's great. Thank you so much for that. How do we find people that have the right aptitude? And then we need to give them time so that they can learn, oh, you've done something similar in the past. Let's talk about how this applies to us here in this environment. And we set expectations. But I want to go one step deeper if I could.
Go.
And that is, your expectations are kind of like the path you get to something. That something is important. In other words, if you want a good team, whether you're thinking about hiring or setting expectations or serving your customers, the real question is, why are we here? And it's not just so you, the retail owner, or you, the person needing a VA, can make more money. I mean, that's part of it. We all need to live, and money helps. But instead, it's, how do I serve my customers? How am I changing the world through the service I offer? And the world could be as simple as, if you own a salon, I want people to leave my business looking good and feeling great.
Yeah.
And then my expectations serve that mission of looking good and feeling great.
Yeah.
Or if they're coming into your shop and they are buying gift cards for their loved ones, I want them to leave knowing that they have the perfect card that expresses their emotion better than they could have ever said themselves.
Yes. I had somebody who was really struggling with, she sold beautiful, and she's been on the podcast, Carmel. She sells beautiful, what she calls modern Australian giftware. And I said something to her. I said, you're like a florist, because most of her people who buy her product buy it as a gift. I said, you are like a florist. Like, you are in the best position because you sell joy, you sell happiness, because the person who's giving the gift wants to feel so good inside that they've picked the right thing. And the person receiving the gift is so excited because so much thought has gone into it. I was like, you and florists have it made. If you're in the gift industry, you've got it made, because you are literally selling joy and happiness for both parties.
So, and that's, I'm in love with the whole idea of that would be a core of what I want that to be, kind of her meaning statement, is that we sell items that bring joy to the gift giver and the receiver.
Yeah.
And then when I'm setting expectations later, they are in service for that meaning statement about how we do things. And when I'm hiring, I want to hire people that can meet the expectations, but for this overall meaning. And that when what we're doing aligns with that higher thing, it is so much easier to train them. It's so much easier to build a culture. It's so much easier to build communication between your team members. Part-time or full-time, it doesn't make a difference, because we know we're all in it for the higher purpose.
Yep. I mean, I would like to think that I am a good leader, because in my business time, my average staff turnover is around 3 years.
Oh, that's good.
And generally it was because they went and had babies, because I generally hired mums. My team at the moment, actually one of them is literally going on maternity leave this week, but generally
it's
they
on
would
your
stay
mind.
with me. Yeah. Otherwise, and sometimes they came back again after they had their baby. But what I was going to say is, how do you make it work when you have, I think this is one of the biggest struggles I started when I opened my store, and then I opened another store, and then I had remote people as well, is how do you foster a really great culture with people who will literally never see each other? Maybe because they're on opposite shifts, or they're remote or they work in a warehouse. How do you make them all get onto the same page?
We've actually talked about a couple of the key things. At the highest level, what is our meaning? In other words, how are you trying to make a difference in the lives of your customers? And that can be something small, but how are we trying to make a difference? How are we different than everyone else who sells something in our town or in our state or on our planet? How are we trying to be a little different? That's one thing. Then is, how do we know we're working on the right stuff? How do we know what success looks like? As a leader, as a business owner, you need to be able to say success is when what? What is it? Do I need to sell $30 for an average ticket price? Or do I need to have an average upsell of, a $30 item? Or do I need to stand outside the shop when there's no one here and invite people in? Or how do we know that we're doing the right things? And then how do we know when we've succeeded? People need to know that. So often they're hired with a job and you have a checklist of 97 items to do this week. I'm not going to tell you how it relates to any meeting. I'm not going to tell you how to work with other people. I'm not going to give the right training and tools. Just do these 97 items.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a punch list that has no value. So when I wake up in the morning, if I'm your employee and that's what I get, is I'd rather hit my snooze button.
Yep.
But if you tell me how my list of things to do impacts this meaning for how I'm going to make a difference for our customers, now I can be aligned with the work. Now it's easier for me to align with my other people that I work with. Now it's easier for me to say, hey, I'm having trouble with this one item. Can you help me? Because we all know we're working together for some meaning.
And so really what you're saying is that if you don't get that meaning right, if you don't understand within yourself, and if you can't convey that to not only your customers, but also to the people who work with you, you're kind of screwed.
Well, you're counting on luck. The best
Yes.
case you're going to get is you got lucky with some people and you got unlucky with other ones. I think, no, don't count on luck. You can control this part. So yes, do what you can to bring people together. But part of it is having meaning. Part of it is knowing what success is. Part of it is that training part, knowing how we work together, how we use the tools. What are the processes? Because some people say, this is how we close the drawer at night. Other people say, no, I do it this way. Well, have one way to do it so we can measure this is the quickest, most efficient. Yes, just you say that like it's obvious, but so many people don't.
This is true. Look, I'm sitting here as you're talking, and I'm sort of, you'll see me if you're watching the video, I'm kind of looking down and I'm looking at my notes because I had a consulting call with not a client, with someone who wanted to hire me, and he wanted to hire me because he was opening a store in a big shopping mall, which is nearby. And I hire really well. Like, we've just talked about all the great things. My average turn is, 3 years. If you can get someone to stay in retail in the same business for 3 years, that's awesome.
It's amazing.
And he said to me, so I had an appointment to go and see him. He rang me back and he said, actually, no, I've decided to go with a HR company because they're going to write the ad. They're going to interview and hire the people. They're going to do the performance reviews and they're going to write all my store policies. And I said to him, well, I can tell you now, if you want those store policies, you can buy them off, they're not going to customize them to your, guys, you have to watch the video for this one. Jeffrey's he's banging his head against the wall. And I said to him, call me back in 3 months when nobody works for you anymore. And also just a reminder that you're going to have to pay this new store manager for 2 days worth of time to read the 150-page manual that somebody else is going to give them. And I said, and who's going to train your store manager? And he said, well, that's what the store manager's job is. And I said to him, you can't just abdicate all responsibility. And this was a luxury product. I have to just point that out. This was not just it was not like 7-Eleven. This was a luxury product that he was selling. Very high-end product. And I said, you can't just abdicate all responsibility because you're literally going to hire someone and say, you aren't doing the right job, but they don't know what they're doing. And so as you are talking, I am just looking at these notes on my desk, just looking at the notes I made from him, like, this is everything that you do wrong if you are trying to hire somebody.
I'm getting a pain. I'm literally getting a
You
headache
have
while
like
you talk
steam
about
coming
this.
out of your ears.
It is, I don't know whether I want to cry or be angry. There's emotions roiling in me because it's like I have choices as a leader and they went the wrong way in almost every case.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we don't need outside experts. We do. We need to count on resources. But you are so right. There's a difference between counting on an expert to assist and abdicating your responsibility.
I just thought of expectations then, and I was thinking that poor store manager is going to get this job so excited and then literally be thrown in the deep end, have no training on the products, not even any expectation of what they're supposed to achieve. And to me, that is everything against what my heart, that's what I actually said to him, I'm really sorry, but I don't think I can work with you because I build brands that people love to come to work to and that customers love to come back to. And I don't think that's what you're trying to build.
No, the abdication is there. So I have models for everything I've done a couple of times. I develop a mental model for how it works or why it works and all the rest. And leadership by abdication is not leadership.
No.
And
that's laziness, I reckon.
Well, that's one of many possible reasons. And I don't care what the reason is. It doesn't work. It's not good.
There's no acceptable reason.
Yes. I mean, you can call it busyness. I don't care. You can say that I have demands from something else. I don't care. You can say, I don't know how. I say, I don't care. You can say, I'm lazy. I don't care. Now, maybe that's rude that Jeffrey doesn't care about so very many things. But what I don't care about is your excuses, because you have a job to do. If you're going to be a leader, then you have a responsibility to your people. And you have a responsibility to the purpose, the meaning. And if you don't serve those two, then you're not really a leader. You're just a title. I recently ran an exercise yesterday. I flew to another town and I was training the trainers for this international hotel chain. And I ran an exercise after lunch where we went around the room and I said, everyone, please, in one line, what is something that you want the world to know? And you could take your time to come up with it. And my line that I want the world to know is this: leadership is easy when you love your people. And I don't mean in an inappropriate HR sense, but what I really mean is when you love your people, when you deeply care about your people, when you are concerned about your people, you will do everything you can to make sure they have the right tools for success. You will do everything you can to make sure they understand the process and the procedures so that they can succeed. You will do everything you can to make sure they understand the mission so they know how to serve your clients. You will do everything you can to find out where their potential is and help grow them up into the great beings that they have the chance to be. You will find ways to nurture and grow your people so they can be the best that they can be, that they can reach their potential. And you will not take excuses from them, from yourself, from other people. You will not let some outsider be rude to your people if you care about your people. You will not keep that bad apple, because even though you care about that bad apple, you will know that it's going to hurt all your other team members.
Yep. And
if
I think
you,
that if you
care about them, it will.
If you actually do care about them, if you truly believe that you are your heart is in the right place. And I'm not saying you need to be walked over, but if you truly do care about yourself and your mission and your customers and why you exist, I have found that your team know when they stuff up, or they generally will know if they're not meeting their own expectations, and their own expectations become so much higher because they don't want to upset you. They don't want to let you down.
Exactly. Because when you show you care, they feel free to care about you and the mission, and they know that you mean what you're saying. So when you talk about your 3-year retention rate, hiring is only part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it is the stuff you're doing every day because you want them to be good at their job, but you also want them to be good at who they are. And that's how you build and keep a great staff.
And that's not hard. Like I said, I just
No.
I remember last week I did a podcast and I coughed, and usually I will take notes and I'll put, 32 minutes, 25, I coughed, so that my lovely editor Mooks will just go straight to that point. And I was so engrossed in the conversation, I forgot to write it down. And after it had gone to air, I was like, oh, I forgot to tell you I coughed. And he's like, no, I saw that. I edited it out. And I just wrote back, have I told you lately that you're awesome? That's just, like, to me, that was such a, like, if it stayed in there, the world was not going to end. But the fact that he'd seen the waveforms, he grabbed it out, he'd cut it out. And we don't do a lot of editing. And I was just like, it's so nice to not have to think, because they do the thinking for you.
Well, you've already set expectations. Hey, I coughed here. Would you take it out? And then you tell them regularly. And then when you forgot, you said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you this. And they said, I already did it. But then you followed up with, have I told you lately? In other words, you gave them feedback for their good behavior. One of my favorite CEOs that I work with doesn't give feedback to his people like that often enough. He does it in little ways, but there's so many chances he misses just to say good job. If there's anything I would change, and I love him. He's one of my favorite people, and his company's doing great things. But just say, that was good, do more of it.
Yeah, you're awesome. You rock. You got this.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is just, and maybe that comes from having that boss for so long that just didn't do anything. Just tell me I did a good job every now and then. It's not hard.
Well, so I'm a firm believer when you're talking about that everyone wakes up and when they're brushing their hair or they're doing their tie or whatever they're doing in the morning to get ready, if you were to say, what kind of day do you want to have today? Every one of them would say, I want to have a good day today. I want to do good work today. And the problem is they get home and no one's told them how they did.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do a good job, but no one's telling them how they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think when back to how do we build a good culture for people? That is, you build a culture where people tell each other, thank you, or you did this and I appreciated it, or, you did this and I know you meant well, but I don't understand why you did it because it didn't work out the way I thought you would have done it.
Yeah.
And just having a quick conversation.
I was going to say, you can do that with a remote team, right? You could just write in your communications book. You could send an email. Hey, it was so nice when I came in today that you set up such and such, or thanks so much.
That's all you need to do. Yeah. I mean, you can do this in 3 lines, 5 lines in a communication book. I've forgotten about those. I used to love those. Those were great tools.
I did a little hack. Sorry to cut in. I did a little hack, and it was like my $1 hack that will change your business. And it was buy an exercise book if you've got a physical store and write stuff down, because people come in the next day and they tick it off, or they put smiley faces and say, thanks so much for that.
Yeah, it is. It's such an easy way to communicate. But it's all about showing your appreciation for people who meet your expectations or exceed them.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you are upset with your people, it is not because they did a bad job. When you get upset, it's showing that you have a missed expectation. When you get upset with someone else, it's not about them, it's about you. And if you have a mixed expectation, then the question is, did I explain it? Did I give enough time? Did I give the right tools and process? Oh, I better go back and re-explain it.
Yeah.
Because the first time there's a problem, it's almost always in how we gave them the tools and expectations, not about they were trying to do a bad job.
Yeah. And I was just thinking that I think if you have really good employees, the most painful thing, like the most not upsetting, but the most painful or upsetting thing that you could say to them is, I'm disappointed. Because to me, that's not even that I'm angry. Angry is different. Like, angry is like probably not their fault, but disappointed is 100% related to something that they did. And even my daughter is exactly the same. If I say I'm disappointed, she bursts into tears. Like, oh my God, I've let my...
Mine too. Mine too. Yes.
And I think that really conveys, without the there's no anger there. It is just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm upset that this didn't happen. And that great team takes that on board and says, wow, I really need to pick up my socks. And one of the other things, I'll just put this tip in, is when you have a good team and stuff seems to go pear-shaped, if they're really good, to me, it means that something external to work is affecting their work. If you've picked people correctly. And so the first question I ask is everything okay? Normally you're so good at this, this, and this, but lately not so much. So I just wanted to reach out and see if everything is okay, because generally, I think pretty much 100% of the time they'll come back and say something has happened outside of work and it's really affected my performance.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely. But when you talk about people feeling disappointment and taking internally, that comes after they truly believe that you care.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do that until first they understand that you care. So I find it so important that the relationship you have is important. Now, this doesn't mean you have to know all about their family. It doesn't mean that you have to get into their details and be invited to children's parties or, to know when a mom's coming to town. If you do, that's great. But it's not absolutely required. Showing you care can be, now in sometimes environments, it's just, what do you want to do for your next job? What can I do to help you train there? You've been here a while. You've shown some real good skills. Which skills do you want to practice? Which skills can be good for you over the long run? And it can stay on a professional level without getting into, the family stuff. Or maybe I've done this where I had a staff and one of the ladies on my team invited a second one to join their softball team. So do you know what I did? I went with my daughter and my wife. We took a picnic and we went out and watched their softball game. It was a fun evening for us and it showed my team I cared.
Yep.
It's not a big deal. I wasn't asking to go to any birthday parties. I was just showing I cared in a little way.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way.
Yeah. And in the process, you're spending time with your family and, it
was a win.
Yeah. It's a win-win-win. All right.
Really is.
I think we've given people a lot to think about here. So I would ask you to give one parting piece of advice, because I know you've given a whole bunch so much, but maybe one thing maybe that people, if they could just tweak one little thing that they can do after listening to this episode, one implementable strategy that's not going to cost money and it's not going to, it's not a huge thing, but it can make a difference. What would it be?
Okay. This is my $1 hack. Go get some index cards.
Do they still make those?
They still make them. So go get some index cards, people. I want you to draw a line down the middle. And on one side, I want you to write build upon. On the other side, write refocus.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is everyone gets up and wants to do a good job, including you. I want you to take your index card and I want you to go to all of your people this week as a leader and say, I meant to do a good job this week helping you and leading this organization. What is one thing I could build upon? And you write it down. And then what's one thing where I tried, but I didn't quite hit the mark?
Yep.
Where should I refocus? And you write down their advice. And I want you to take one card with one person, one card with another person, one card with another one, until you use up all your people. Yep. And I want you to do that this week.
Okay.
Then in a month, I want you to do it again. Now, you should act on the stuff that they tell you.
Yes.
I want you to start doing this on a regular basis. And after you've done this a couple times, you hand out index cards to your people and say, hey, I've been doing this. I want you to go to 2 of your peers.
Yep. That's a big scary thing, isn't it, though? That's really being quite vulnerable.
But we are acknowledging that we're all trying to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
We're acknowledging that some things could be better. We're acknowledging that some things we didn't quite do right.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, doing this for 12 months, you'll look back and say, holy cow, we are constantly getting better. And the reason is you are talking to each other about how to be your best.
Yep.
That is my $1 hack. Go buy yourself some index cards and then use them to take notes.
And an exercise book, and you're going to be set.
$2 and you've got a whole company.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this advice. I think it's really practical stuff that we can put in place without having to. I think we have to have a mindset shift more than anything else, and be vulnerable with our own team to a degree. So if people would like to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Okay. Like we said, I've got a company and my website is greatteamsltd.com. That's
Fantastic.
greatteamsltd.com. Now, I want to say I have 3 exercises just for building your team, and it's only for podcast listeners. So greatteamsltd.com/more.
Okay.
I talk about 3 different things. The index card hack is one of them.
Okay.
Go there, download it. No email address. I ask for nothing except for you help your team.
Cool. Well, we will make sure that we put that link in the show notes. If you want to build better teams, head over to greatteamsltd.com/more to get Jeffrey's fantastic hacks. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.